Hi, Achim from American Runabouts. I know it's been a while, I'm sorry for that. Recently I had a comment where somebody was like, it's such a pity you don't continue with this channel. I do continue, it's been just a rough time. We moved twice with the workshop, bigger. If you look around, it's a whole difference to the old videos where you see our small, shitty, crampy little workshop. So yeah, that took a lot of time. My other channel, Inner Space Explorers, takes a lot of effort. So I'm back and I'm not alone anymore. Aaron, whom you've seen in a lot of these videos, went back to Australia. So I had to work alone for a year. Now Michael's back and is actually holding the camera right now, which makes things a lot easier for me as well. So today I want to talk to you about how to cut and trim acrylic glass. Reason behind this, our main business is boat windscreens, and there's a long description that comes with our windscreens where we explain how people can fit these windscreens, because we usually manufacture them with a little bit of oversize, so people can really fit them to their boat. And so there's a lot of questions and I want to cover all of these. So most important, eye protection. When you cut or grind acrylic glass, you have these fine splinters and they're not good in your eyes, so use eye protection. So let's talk about the tools. The first and main tool when we cut acrylic glass is a jigsaw. So there's a couple of things you need to think about before you use a jigsaw. So the first thing is the blade. So you want to use a very fine blade with very fine teeth, which is for metal and plastic. So it depends a little bit which brand you buy. So this is sold as metal. So you can see this very fine teeth. And the other thing is obviously the speed. So the speed is how often per minute does the blade go up and down. And then you have, in Germany it's Pendelloop, I have no idea what it is in English, but the blade on a jigsaw does not only do this, but it does this basically, right? So when it goes down, it also goes forward and it has this circling motion. And that is what you control on this one here with this lever. So this is no forward motion at all, it just goes up and down. And then the higher you go, the more intense this forward motion is going to be. So normally you would say no forward motion at all when you cut acrylic. The thicker the material becomes, the more difficult it becomes to cut with no forward motion. The problem with the forward motion is that it starts to break the edges and you have all these very fine tears in it, and this is usually where it breaks, plus it gives you a rough edge. So you have to find a balance, and this is why I always recommend use a test piece and make a test cut to find the right speed and the right forward spin drive, whatever you want to call it. And so our windscreens are normally out of 5mm material. That's all what you can see here is 5mm. And there I actually use the first step in the forward motion. And I mean, this has speeds from 1 to 6, so I use 3 on that. And so now we come to the second most important thing. You always need, when you use a jigsaw on acrylic glass, you need the protective foil on it. Not only to not scratch the material, but if you do not have the foil, and I'll show you that in a minute, the blade will basically melt the material and the material will melt back together behind the blade and you don't get a proper cut. So when you have the foil, that's all no problem. If you have material where the foil's gone, like you get a windscreen from us, it's normally packed in this blue foil material, which is a protective foil. You can buy that as well. So when you want to cut it and it's without protective foil, you put this foil over it on both sides and then you'll cut it again. So let me show you quickly a couple of cuts so you see the difference. So the first thing I'll show you, very high speed and full forward motion. So it's completely wrong, but I want you to see the effect. And you can see that it breaks the edges. You can see it breaks out here, right? And this is obviously what you want to avoid. You want a clean cut. So we set it back. Now there's 0 forward motion, and I trim it back to 3. That's my normal cutting speed. And as you can already see, it gives a very clean cut. The problem is that it's very, very, very slow. So I'll switch to the first forward speeds just a little bit, and you will see that the cutting becomes way more effective, and it still gives a reasonable edge. So yeah, the first 2 centimeters here, we have the cut without the forward motion, and now we'll continue with this forward motion. So you see there's almost no difference. There's a little bit of like a white line here, and that is in fact a little bit of broken material, but I mean I just went over it with my finger, and you can see that it gives a really nice and easy cut. You don't see a real difference from, I think it was up to here roughly, where I cut without the forward motion, and then here is the forward motion, but that gave a really nice cut. So to show you the difference without the foil, we'll cut this piece here without foil on it. It's not very long, but I probably can show you the effect. So it was a very short piece, and so obviously there was not a lot of time to develop heat, but you can already see that the material starts to melt here. This is not a clean cut, this is molten material. So if I would cut this like lengthwise, at least around here it would start to melt because it gets really hot, and the foil does not transfer the heat away from the material. All right, so that's the first thing. The other thing I want to show you is, what do I do if I have a piece that I can not really properly cut with a jigsaw? I mean, obviously I could do this, but we have way more complex materials that we show you a sample. So that's a prime example. That's a sample piece from a scimitar window, and it has these bumps in here. So it's really hard to cut around here because these bumps would really interfere with the jigsaw. And then you can actually cut it with an angle grinder. A lot of people don't think that this is possible, but it is, and I'll show you how that works. Again, eye protection is key, and it actually gives quite a nice edge. So I'll actually cut along here, and I'll show you how that goes. The most important thing is, or it's a recommendation, use a battery-driven edge grinder because it has less force and it's easier to control. So it's a steel cutting disc. And what I do, And as you can see, that gives a very reasonable edge. Obviously you need some sanding afterwards, but you see it's a very clean cut. Also when you look from, it's possible to make a really nice cut, and that was freehand. So that's also quite an alternative to the Jigsaw and gives very nice results. And you also see it didn't melt, so no molten remains here, so that's a very good alternative. Alright, now let's quickly talk about the trimming of these pieces. So when you get a windscreen and you figure out, it's a little bit too much and I need to cut away something, I do not recommend the Jigsaw. It's always very easy. I mean, you get out, the blade touches the top, it breaks. You bend it a little bit, whatever. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, especially if you're not used to it. So forget about the Jigsaw. We just want to fine-tune and trim a piece. So what really works nice is the edge grinder with one of these grinding discs. As you can see, that's a heavily used one. And that's on purpose, because when you take a new one, it's really abrasive and you take a lot of material in a very short time. So I always recommend take a used one. It gives you a little bit more, more room to play with. And I'll show you just quickly, just need to switch sides again, how you can do that. Just eye protection. So again, as you can see, there's no molten material. It gives a nice edge and it's very controllable. I mean, that's the key element. You want to be in control when you work on these things. And that's a very nice solution to just, take an edge off, take a little bit of material, and everybody can do that, and you don't need the foil on it or whatever. So when you have your windscreen, you take the foil off, you fit it to the bow, you realize, oh, there's a couple of millimeters here, a couple of millimeters there. You take a permanent marker, you trace it, and then you take the grinding disc and grind it away. Very simple. So the other thing that sometimes happens is you want to fit one of these like in a frame, and you figure out that really doesn't work, and you want it a little bit like a blade, so you want to grind off the edge a little bit. So when you do it with this, that's actually too rough. It really, I mean, then you have all these gorges in there if you're not really familiar with it. So what I would recommend then is a belt sander. So belt sander is this nice beast here. And that's a very nice method to work on that. I'll show you that in a second. So you put it down somewhere properly, and then I'll show you two things. So now you see you have a really nice edge here from both sides, and now it would be very easy to slide that in a frame, for example. If it's a really small piece, what you can always do is you can get this one like in a vice grip. I'll show you that as well. And same thing, you get a really nice edge. So if you work on a small part, it's sometimes easier to get the tool in a fixed position and handle the piece you want to work on instead of trying to hold a small piece plus the machine. So that's a real alternative. All right, I hope that explains a little bit how to work with this material. If you have questions, comments, please put them in the comment section. If you like my content, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Other than that, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.